In Lagos, Nigeria, 35-year-old Chukwuemeka Nnamani was a true tech genius. His brilliant mind had created a revolutionary money app that made him a billionaire overnight, placing him at the pinnacle of Africa's tech world. Chukwuemeka's innovative software had transformed finance across the continent, earning him fame and fortune beyond his wildest dreams. As a tech prodigy, Chukwuemeka lived in a stunning mansion overlooking the city, drove the latest luxury cars, and received invitations to all the most exclusive events. His technological brilliance had given him everything money could buy. Yet, despite his wealth and genius, Chukwuemeka felt a deep emptiness inside. Each morning, he stood on his balcony, gazing out at the bustling city below, feeling more isolated than ever. "Does anyone see beyond my achievements?" he often pondered. Over the years, Chukwuemeka had dated numerous women, initially enjoying the attention. However, he soon realized a painful truth. These women weren't interested in the man behind the genius. They were attracted to his wealth, his expensive attire, and his lavish lifestyle, not his innovative mind or kind heart. Chukwuemeka's loneliness intensified. His schedule brimmed with business meetings and charity functions, but his heart remained unfulfilled. He yearned for true love, someone who would appreciate him for his personality, his kindness, and his aspirations, rather than his technological prowess and bank balance. "I want someone who values me for who I am," Chukwuemeka whispered to himself, "not just for what I've created or how much I'm worth." But in a world where everyone knew him as the billionaire tech genius, Chukwuemeka wondered if he would ever find someone who could see beyond his success and love him for his true self. One day, Chukwuemeka stood on his balcony, lost in thought. His sister Adaobi approached with a glass of palm wine. "Another successful day, I presume?" Adaobi asked, offering him the drink. Chukwuemeka took a sip, tasting the familiar flavor. "Success," he said quietly. "What does that even mean anymore, Adaobi?" Adaobi raised an eyebrow. "Oh no, here comes the existential crisis." "What's bothering you, brother?" He turned to face her, his eyes showing a tiredness beyond his years. "Do you ever wonder if anyone sees past all this?" He waved his hand at the luxurious apartment. "The money, the fame. Does anyone see me?" Adaobi's playful smile disappeared. She could tell her brother was really upset. "Chukwu, you're more than your wealth. Surely you know that?" "Do I?" he asked in a low voice. "Every relationship I've had, it's all been about what I can give. The expensive gifts, the connections, the status. But who would want Chukwuemeka the man, not Chukwuemeka the billionaire?" Adaobi put her hand on his shoulder to comfort him. "There are good people out there, brother. Not everyone is after your money." Chukwuemeka nodded without really paying attention. An idea was starting to form in his mind. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it's time I found out for myself." Adaobi looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" But Chukwuemeka didn't answer. He was lost in thought, considering a plan that was taking shape in his mind. Over the next few days, Chukwuemeka thought hard about his idea. He decided to leave his rich life and go to a faraway village. There, he would pretend to be a poor man, but he knew just being poor wasn't enough to really test if people would accept him. "I need something more," he said to himself, "something that will really challenge people." After thinking for a long time, he came up with a plan. He would pretend to have an embarrassing problem. He would act like he wet the bed. Bedwetting is seen as very shameful, Chukwuemeka thought, especially for grown-ups. But it's not so bad that I can't live a normal life in the village. He sat down and wrote out his plan. If I can find someone who accepts me even with this problem, they might really love me for who I am inside. Chukwuemeka knew it was a big risk. He might be rejected or made fun of. But he was so tired of people only liking him for his money. "I have to try," he said firmly. "I need to know if someone can love the real me." He started to get ready for his journey. As he packed a small bag with old clothes, he felt both scared and excited. "This could all go wrong," he admitted to himself, "but it could also help me find real love. I have to take this chance." The next day, Chukwuemeka decided to tell Adaobi about his plan. He found her in the living room, reading a book. "Adaobi, I need to talk to you about something important," he said, sitting down next to her. As he explained his idea, Adaobi's eyes grew wider and wider. When he finished, she exploded. "Have you lost your mind?" she shouted, jumping up from her seat. "You want to give up everything you've worked for and pretend to be a bedwetter? Chukwu, this is madness." Chukwuemeka stayed calm. He had expected this reaction. "I know it sounds crazy, Adaobi, but I need to do this. I need to know if someone can love me for who I am, not what I have." Adaobi paced the room, shaking her head. Then she stopped and looked at him, her voice softer now. "And what if someone recognizes you? What if you can't handle the life of poverty? Have you thought this through?" "That's why I need your help," Chukwuemeka said, leaning forward. "I need you to manage things here while I'm gone. And I need you to come find me if you don't hear from me in 3 months." Adaobi stared at her brother for a long time. She could see how much this meant to him. His eyes showed both determination and fear. Finally, she sighed deeply. 3 months, Chukwu. Not a day more, and you better stay safe," she said firmly. Chukwuemeka felt relieved. He needed his sister's support. "Thank you, Adaobi. I promise I'll be careful." With Adaobi's reluctant blessing, Chukwuemeka started to plan his journey. He spread out a map on the table and pointed to a small dot. "Here," he said. "Umuofia, a small village in Anambra State. It's so far away, no one will know me there." Adaobi looked at the map and nodded slowly. "It does look remote. But Chukwu, are you sure about this?" Chukwuemeka looked at his sister, his face serious. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Adaobi. I need to do this." For the next week, Chukwuemeka worked hard to change how he looked and acted. He stopped shaving and let his beard grow messy. He stood in front of the mirror, trying to speak differently. "I need to sound like I'm from the village," he said to himself, practicing over and over. He also changed how he walked. He bent his back a little, like someone who felt ashamed all the time. When he went shopping, he bought old, cheap clothes. "These are perfect," he said, holding up a worn shirt. No one would think a rich man would wear this. But changing how he looked wasn't enough. Chukwuemeka knew he had to think differently too. He made up a whole new life for himself. "My name is Emeka," he practiced saying. "I'm a farmer's son. We had bad harvests, so I had to leave home to find work." He said this story many times each day. Sometimes he would wake up in the middle of the night and say it again. One day, Adaobi came to check on him. She found him wearing old clothes and speaking with a different accent. "Chukwu, is that really you?" she asked, looking shocked. Chukwuemeka smiled. "It's Emeka now, remember? What do you think? Do I look and sound different?" Adaobi walked around him, shaking her head. "I can hardly recognize you, but are you sure about all this? It's not too late to change your mind." "I'm sure," Chukwuemeka said firmly. "I need to do this, Adaobi. I need to know if someone can like me for who I am, not what I have." Adaobi sighed. "Okay, but please be careful, and don't forget who you really are." Chukwuemeka nodded. "I won't forget. This is just for a little while. I'll be back before you know it." As the week went on, Chukwuemeka felt more and more like Emeka. He hoped it would be enough to fool the people in the village. He was nervous but excited too. Soon he would find out if his plan would work. The night before his departure, Chukwuemeka stood in his penthouse, looking at the life he was leaving behind. Doubt crept in. Was he making a huge mistake? But then he remembered the emptiness he felt each night, the longing for genuine connection. With a deep breath, he picked up his small bag. Chukwuemeka packed a small bag with some ragged clothes and basic supplies. He withdrew a modest amount of cash to live on and left behind all traces of his wealthy lifestyle. As a final touch, he grew out his beard and hair to change his appearance. The next morning, Adaobi drove Chukwuemeka to a quiet part of Lagos. They sat in silence for a moment before he got out. "This is it," Chukwuemeka said, his voice shaking a little. Adaobi looked worried. "Are you sure about this, Chukwu?" He nodded. "I have to do this, Adaobi. I'll be fine." She hugged him tightly. "Be careful. Call me if you need anything." Chukwuemeka watched her drive away, then caught a cab to the bus station. He bought a ticket to Anambra and boarded the bus. The journey was long and uncomfortable. The roads were bad, full of potholes that made the bus shake. People were squeezed together tightly. "Is this your first time to Anambra?" the woman next to him asked. Chukwuemeka, now fully in his role as Emeka, nodded. "Yes, I'm looking for work." When he finally arrived in Umuofia, he was tired and sore. He took a local cab to the village centre. Umuofia looked nothing like Lagos. There were mud houses and dirt roads. Children ran around playing with toys made from sticks and cans. As Emeka walked into the village, people stared at him. He felt nervous, but kept walking. He saw an old man sitting under a big tree. "Good day, sir," Emeka said, trying to sound like a villager. "I'm new here. Do you know where I could stay?" The old man, Nwoye, looked at him closely. "What brings you to Umuofia, young man?" Emeka told his practiced story. "I'm looking for work, sir. I'm a farmer's son, but our land wasn't growing much. I heard there might be jobs here." Nwoye nodded slowly. "There's an old hut outside the village. It's empty. You can stay there while you look for work." Emeka thanked him, but Nwoye wasn't finished. "Be careful, young man. We don't trust outsiders easily in Umuofia." The hut was small and falling apart. The roof leaked and there was no electricity. Emeka put his few things inside and looked around. This would be his home for 3 months. That night, lying on the hard floor, Emeka couldn't sleep. He heard strange noises outside. He felt very alone and uncomfortable. "What am I doing here?" he thought. Maybe this was a mistake. But then he remembered why he came. He wanted to find real love, someone who would like him for himself. "I have to try," he whispered in the dark. "I have to know if someone can love the real me." Finally, he fell into an uneasy sleep, wondering what the next day would bring. In the days that followed, Emeka worked hard to fit into village life. He walked around saying hello to people and offering to help with jobs. Some people were nice to him, but others didn't trust him. One day, he met Mama Nneka, an old lady with a friendly smile. She needed help fixing her roof. "Young man," she called out, "could you help an old woman with her roof?" Emeka nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mama. I'd be happy to help." As he worked on the roof under the hot sun, Mama Nneka talked a lot. "So where are you from?" she asked. Emeka told his made-up story. "I'm from a farm in the next state, but the crops didn't grow well, so I came here for work." Mama Nneka nodded. "It's not easy being a farmer. How's your family doing?" Emeka felt a bit bad about lying. "They're managing, Mama. It's why I need to find work here." As he worked, other villagers walked by. Some waved, but others just stared. "Don't mind them," Mama Nneka said. "They're not used to new faces." Emeka wiped sweat from his forehead. "I understand. I hope they'll get to know me soon." He was surprised at how easy it was to tell his fake story. But he also felt a little guilty. "Is this right?" he thought to himself, lying to these kind people. But he pushed the thought away. He had to stick to his plan if he wanted to find real love. As days went by, Emeka started getting used to life in the village. He got up early every morning, went to get water from the well, and looked for work to do. The hard work made his body hurt because he wasn't used to it, but he felt proud of the blisters on his hands and the sore muscles. One morning, Emeka went to the well for water. As he was filling his bucket, a young woman approached. "You must be the newcomer," she said with a friendly smile. "I'm Olana, the headmaster's daughter." Emeka nodded, suddenly feeling shy. "Yes, I'm Emeka. Nice to meet you." As they both filled their buckets, Olana asked, "How are you finding Umuofia?" "It's gone different," Emeka admitted, "but the people have been kind, mostly." Olana laughed. "Mostly is right. We're not used to new faces here." As they walked back to the village, Olana talked about her work at the school. Her eyes lit up as she spoke. "I want to make our school better," she said. "These children deserve a good education." Emeka was impressed. "That's a wonderful goal. How do you plan to do it?" Olana sighed. "It's not easy. We need more books, better trained teachers. But I won't give up." Emeka felt drawn to her passion. "I'd love to hear more about your plans," he said. Olana looked at him surprised. "Really? Most people here don't care much about the school." "I care," Emeka said honestly. "Education is important." As they reached the village, Olana smiled at him. "It's nice to meet someone who understands." Would you like to come see the school sometime? Emeka nodded eagerly. I'd like that very much. As he watched Olana walk away, Emeka felt a warmth in his chest. For the first time since coming to Umuofia, he felt a real connection with someone. Over the next few weeks, Emeka and Olana spent a lot of time together. They often met in the evenings to walk by the stream and talk. One evening, Olana sighed heavily. The school is struggling, Emeka. We don't have enough books or supplies. Emeka listened carefully. That must be frustrating. What do you need most? Everything, Olana exclaimed. Books, pencils, even chairs. But most of all, we need good teachers. As they talked, Emeka found himself opening up too. I've always dreamed of making a difference, he said, careful not to reveal too much. But it's hard when you don't have much. Olana squeezed his hand. I understand, but you're making a difference here, Emeka. People are starting to accept you. Emeka felt his heart race at her touch. He realized he was falling in love with Olana. She was kind, smart, and cared about others. She was everything he had hoped to find. But as his feelings grew stronger, so did his worry. He knew he had to tell Olana about his bedwetting problem soon. One evening, Emeka and Olana were walking by the stream. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. Emeka's heart was beating fast. He knew it was time to tell Olana his secret. Olana, Emeka said, his voice shaking, I need to tell you something. I've been hiding it from you. Olana stopped walking and looked at him. She looked worried. What is it, Emeka? You can tell me anything. Emeka took a deep breath. His hands were sweating. I have a problem. I wet the bed. I'm a bedwetter. Olana's eyes widened. She didn't say anything, so Emeka kept talking. It's been happening since I was a child. I can't control it. I've tried everything, but nothing works. He paused, then added softly, I love you, Olana. I want to spend my life with you, but I understand if you don't want to be with me anymore. Emeka waited, holding his breath. He watched Olana's face change. First, she looked shocked. Then she didn't believe him. Finally, her face showed disgust. Olana stepped back from him. Emeka, that's disgusting, she said. Her voice sounded like she wanted to throw up. You're a grown man. How can you not control yourself? Emeka felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. I've tried everything, but… No, Olana interrupted him. She shook her head hard. I can't be with someone like that. What would people say? Emeka tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. Olana, please. I'm sorry, Emeka, Olana said. She wasn't looking at him anymore. This is too much. I can't face the shame if the village people find out. Before Emeka could say anything else, Olana turned and ran away. He watched her go, feeling hurt and disappointed. He had been afraid of this reaction, but it hurt more than he thought it would. Emeka walked back to his hut alone. The night felt cold and dark. He had opened up to Olana, made himself vulnerable, and she had rejected him. Even though his bedwetting wasn't real, Olana's reaction still hurt a lot. As he walked, Emeka started to doubt his plan. Was I wrong to lie to these people? He asked himself. Is this whole idea of finding real love a mistake? He remembered how kind Olana had been before, how she cared about the village and wanted to make things better. This is the kind of woman I want, he muttered to himself, but now I've ruined everything with this lie. When Emeka got back to his hut, he sat on his bed and put his head in his hands. He felt more alone than ever before. He wondered if he should just go back to Lagos and forget this whole plan. But something inside him said to wait and see what would happen next. The next morning, Emeka woke up feeling uneasy. As he walked to the market, he noticed people whispering and pointing at him. His heart sank. It seemed Olana had told everyone his secret. At the market, a group of children saw him coming. They started chanting, Emeka the bedwetter! Emeka the bedwetter! Emeka tried to ignore them, but their words stung. He saw a mother grab her child's hand and pull him away. Stay away from that man, she hissed. He might be cursed. We don't want you catching his problem. At the village well, Emeka approached a group of women. They suddenly went quiet. Good morning, Emeka said, trying to sound normal. The women didn't reply. As he walked away, he heard them burst into laughter. Later, he passed the palm wine shop. He overheard some men talking. "Hey, did you hear about Emeka?" one man said. "Maybe we should buy him some diapers." They all laughed loudly. Emeka felt his face burn with shame. Even the older people, who were usually kind, treated him differently now. As he passed old Nwoi, the man who had first welcomed him, Nwoi just shook his head and looked away. Emeka decided to look for work, hoping to take his mind off things. He went to Mama Neka's house, where he had fixed the roof before. "Mama Neka," he called out, "do you need any help today?" Mama Neka came to the door but didn't open it fully. No, she said quickly. "I don't need any help. Go away now." Feeling rejected, Emeka went to the village shop. The shopkeeper, who had always been friendly before, frowned when he saw Emeka. "What do you want?" the shopkeeper asked rudely. "Just some bread, please," Emeka said quietly. The shopkeeper shook his head. "Number, I don't want you touching my goods. You might dirty them. Go away." Emeka left the shop, feeling hurt and angry. He hadn't expected people to be so cruel. He thought some might react badly, but this level of mockery and rejection was shocking. As he walked back to his hut, Emeka felt very alone. He had come to the village hoping to find genuine connection and love. Instead, he had found only judgment and cruelty. Maybe this whole plan was a mistake, he thought to himself. But then he remembered why he had come. He wanted to find someone who would accept him, flaws and all. He decided to stay, hoping that someone in the village might show him kindness despite his supposed problem. One morning, Emeka woke up to a shocking sight. His hut had been vandalized overnight. Someone had painted "Bedwetter" in big red letters on his door. On his doorstep, he found diapers and baby bottles, a cruel joke from the village children. Emeka stood there, staring at the damage. He felt a mix of anger and sadness. "Why are they being so mean?" he whispered to himself. As he cleaned up the mess, Emeka thought about giving up. "Maybe I should just go back to Lagos," he said out loud. "This experiment is a failure." But something inside him refused to quit. He had come this far, he couldn't give up now. That evening, Emeka sat outside his hut, hoping someone would talk to him. He saw his neighbor, Mr. Okafor, walking by. "Good evening, Mr. Okafor," Emeka called out. Mr. Okafor looked uncomfortable. "Oh, good evening," he mumbled, hurrying past. Emeka sighed. He had been buying extra sheets and hanging them outside, letting people think what they wanted. It seemed to be working too well. The constant mockery and rejection by the village were almost unbearable. Emeka thought about giving up and going back to Lagos. He had experienced the rejection he had feared, and it hurt more than he could have imagined. The experiment seemed to be a failure. If this was how people reacted to a medical condition, how could he ever find genuine love? But something kept him in the village, a mix of stubbornness and hope that maybe, just maybe, he could still find what he was looking for. He had come this far, he couldn't give up now. He picked up courage. The next day, as Emeka was fetching water, he noticed a new face in the village. A young woman he hadn't seen before was struggling with a heavy water bucket. "Let me help you with that," Emeka offered, reaching for the bucket. The woman looked surprised but smiled. "Thank you. I'm Chukwuemeka. I'm new here, taking care of my sick grandmother." Emeka introduced himself, waiting for the usual look of disgust. But it didn't come. "Nice to meet you, Emeka," Chukwuemeka said warmly. "How long have you been in Umuofia?" They chatted as they walked back to the village. Chukwuemeka didn't seem to care about the rumors or Emeka's appearance. "People here seem a bit unfriendly," Chukwuemeka said carefully. Emeka nodded. "They can be, especially to outsiders." "Well, I'm glad I met you then," Chukwuemeka smiled. "It's nice to have a friendly face around." For the first time in days, Emeka felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he had found someone who could see past his supposed flaw. As they parted ways, Chukwuemeka turned back. "See you around, Emeka. Don't let the gossips get you down." Emeka watched her go, feeling a mix of hope and caution. Could Chukwuemeka be the person he had been looking for, or would she too reject him once she heard the rumors? Only time would tell. Over the next few weeks, Emeka and Chukwuemeka spent more time together. One day they were sitting by the stream when Chukwuemeka asked, "Emeka, can I ask you something personal?" Emeka tensed up, expecting the worst. "Sure," he said cautiously. "I've heard rumors about your condition," Chukwuemeka said gently. "Is it true?" Emeka felt his face burn with shame. He nodded slowly. "Yes, it's true. I understand if you don't want to be around me anymore." But Chukwuemeka surprised him. She reached out and took his hand. "Emeka, a medical condition doesn't define who you are. I've gotten to know you, and you're a kind, hard-working man." Emeka felt tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Chukwuemeka. You don't know how much that means to me." As they continued to meet, Emeka found himself sharing more about his life, or at least the life he had invented. "I've always dreamed of doing something meaningful," he told her one evening, "but it's hard when you don't have much." Chukwuemeka nodded. "I understand. That's why I'm studying nursing. I want to help improve healthcare in villages like this." Her eyes shone as she talked about her plans. Emeka felt himself falling for her more and more, but not everyone was happy about their friendship. One day, Emeka overheard Olana talking to Chukwuemeka in the market. "You shouldn't be seen with him," Olana hissed. "Do you know what he does at night? It's disgusting." Emeka held his breath, waiting for Chukwuemeka's response. "I don't care what you say about him," Chukwuemeka said firmly. "Emeka is a good man. His medical condition doesn't change that." Later, when they met, Emeka couldn't hide his gratitude. "Chukwuemeka, thank you for defending me. Not many people would do that." Chukwuemeka smiled. "You don't need to thank me for telling the truth, Emeka." As their relationship grew deeper, Emeka felt torn. He was falling in love with Chukwuemeka, but he was also living a lie. One night, as they watched the sunset, he almost told her the truth. "Chukwuemeka, there's something I need to tell you," he began. She looked at him expectantly. "What is it, Emeka?" But fear stopped him. What if she couldn't forgive his deception? What if he lost her? I just wanted to say thank you," he said finally, "for accepting me as I am." Chukwuemeka squeezed his hand. "Always, Emeka. Always." As they walked back to the village, Emeka felt a mix of love and guilt. He had found someone who accepted him, flaws and all. But she didn't know the whole truth. He wondered how long he could keep up this charade and what would happen when the truth finally came out. As Emeka grappled with this dilemma, a new complication arose. One faithful day, Chukwuemeka's father, Obinna, returned to the village after a long business trip. When he heard about his daughter's relationship with Emeka, he was furious. He summoned Chukwuemeka to their family compound immediately. "Chukwuemeka!" Obinna's voice boomed as she entered the room. His face was dark with anger. "What is this I hear about you and that disgraceful man?" Chukwuemeka took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Father, please listen. Emeka is a good man. His medical condition doesn't change that." Obinna's eyes flashed with rage. "No daughter of mine will be associated with such a person. Do you know how this makes our family look? I'm being mocked by my fellow kinsmen because of you." "But father," Chukwuemeka pleaded, "it's not his fault. It's a medical condition, not a moral failing." "I don't care what it is," Obinna shouted. "You will stop seeing him immediately. I forbid you from having any contact with that man." The argument continued for hours. Chukwuemeka tried every way she could think of to reason with her father, but Obinna remained unmoved. "Father," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I understand your concerns. But I cannot abandon Emeka. His condition doesn't change who he is as a person." Obinna's face darkened even more. "You dare defy me? I am your father. And I respect you, father," Chukwuemeka replied, "but in this I must follow my heart. Emeka is a good man, a perfect and kind man I have seen in my entire life, and I will not leave him because of something he cannot control." The tension in the room was thick. Obinna's hands clenched into fists, his body trembling with rage. For a moment, Chukwuemeka feared he might strike her. Suddenly, a weak voice spoke up. It was Nne, Chukwuemeka's grandmother and Obinna's mother, who had been silent until now. "Obinna," Nne said, her voice frail but firm, "leave the girl alone. She has made her choice." Obinna turned to his mother, his anger now directed at her. "Mother, how can you say that? Over my dead body will I allow a disgraced man to enter our family as an in-law?" "But Nne," Chukwuemeka started, but Obinna cut her off. "No, If this happens, I will have failed my lineage. Our children will be bedwetters. They will grow up to be bedwetters. Our family will be doomed for life." His voice grew even more menacing. "If you don't end this relationship, I will kill you both myself." Chukwuemeka felt a chill run down her spine. She knew her father was a man of his word. She looked at her grandmother, hoping for support, but Nne had closed her eyes, seemingly exhausted by the confrontation. Torn between her love for Emeka and fear for his safety, Chukwuemeka made a difficult decision. "All right, father," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll leave him. I promise I'll go tell Emeka it's over." Obinna's posture relaxed slightly, but his eyes remained hard. "See that you do, and if I hear that you've seen him again..." He left the threat hanging in the air. Chukwuemeka nodded, fighting back tears. As she left the compound, Chukwuemeka's heart felt heavy. She loved her father and respected his position in the family, but she also cared deeply for Emeka. She knew the pain and rejection he had faced in the village, and the thought of abandoning him broke her heart. "What am I going to tell Emeka?" she whispered to herself as she walked. "How can I explain this to him?" She remembered all the moments they had shared, how Emeka had opened up to her about his fears and dreams. She thought about how he had faced the village's cruelty with dignity. "I can't just leave him," she thought. "But if I don't, father might really hurt him. Or worse." As she walked towards Emeka's hut, Chukwuemeka's mind raced, trying to find a solution. But no matter how she looked at it, she felt trapped. "I have to end it," she finally decided, tears streaming down her face. "It's the only way to keep Emeka safe." With a heavy heart, Chukwuemeka approached Emeka's hut, preparing herself for the difficult conversation ahead. She knew that what she was about to do would hurt Emeka deeply, but she couldn't see any other way out of this impossible situation. Her heart is heavy. She found him outside, tending to a small garden he had started. When he saw her, his face lit up, but it quickly fell as he noticed her tear-stained cheeks. "Chukwuemeka, what's wrong?" Emeka asked, rushing to her side. Chukwuemeka took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Emeka, I'm so sorry. My father, he's forbidden me from seeing you. He says it brings shame to our family." Emeka felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. "No, Chukwuemeka, please. We can find a way. We can talk to your father together, make him understand." Chukwuemeka shook her head, more tears falling. "I can't go against my father's wishes, Emeka. I'm sorry, I truly am." Her voice dropped to a whisper. He threatened to kill you, and me. We have to end this. It's the only way to keep you safe." Emeka reached for her hand, but Chukwuemeka stepped back. "Chukwuemeka, please don't do this. We can figure something out." "We can't, Emeka. It's over. We need to get over each other." With those words, Chukwuemeka turned and walked away, leaving Emeka standing alone. As Chukwuemeka's figure disappeared into the distance, Emeka felt a pain deeper than any he had experienced before. He had finally found someone who accepted him, flaws and all, only to have her torn away by societal prejudice and threats. Emeka went into his hut and sat on his bed, his head in his hands. He thought about leaving the village, going back to his old life. But something made him hesitate. What Emeka didn't know was that this wasn't the end of their story. As Chukwuemeka walked away, her mind was already forming a plan. She had only pretended to agree with her father's demands. In her heart, she knew that Emeka was a good man, regardless of his supposed condition. That night, as Chukwuemeka lay in bed, she whispered to herself, "I'm sorry, Emeka. I had to make it look real, but I'm not giving up on us. We'll find a way to be together. I promise." Late that night, Chukwuemeka lay awake in her bed, unable to sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about Emeka and how she had left things with him. The thought of never seeing him again was unbearable. Her thoughts kept returning to Emeka. Finally, she made a decision. "I have to see him. No, I have to see him tonight. I miss him so much," she whispered to herself. Chukwuemeka waited until she heard her father's loud snoring. Quietly, she slipped out of bed and crept out of the compound. The village was dark and quiet as Chukwuemeka made her way to Emeka's hut. Her heart was racing as she knocked softly on his door. When Emeka opened it, he looked shocked. "Chukwuemeka, what are you doing here?" "Shh," she said, quickly stepping inside and closing the door. "Emeka, I couldn't leave things like that. I had to see you." In the dim light of an oil lamp, Emeka could see the determination in her eyes. Chukwuemeka took his hands in hers. "I told my father I would stop seeing you," she said softly but firmly, "but I can't do that. I care about you, Emeka. Your condition doesn't change how I feel." Emeka felt a mix of joy and fear. "But Chukwuemeka, your father, the village." Chukwuemeka shook her head. "We'll find a way. I believe in us, in our future together. We just need to be careful and patient." Emeka pulled her into a tight hug. "I was so afraid I'd lost you," he whispered. From that night on, Emeka and Chukwuemeka started meeting in secret. They found hidden spots around the village where they could be together. One evening, they met in the dense forest on the village outskirts. "This is nice," Chukwuemeka said, leaning against a tree. "No one can see us here." Emeka nodded but looked worried. "Chukwuemeka, are you sure about this? If your father finds out—" "He won't," Chukwuemeka assured him. "We're being careful." Another time, they met by the stream late at night. "It's so peaceful here," Emeka said, listening to the water. Chukwuemeka squeezed his hand. "Being with you is peaceful, Emeka." They even found an old, abandoned hut to meet in sometimes. "It's not much," Emeka said, looking around the dusty space. Chukwuemeka smiled. "It's perfect. It's ours." Each time they met, their bond grew stronger. These stolen moments became precious to both of them. "I wish we didn't have to hide," Emeka said one night. Chukwuemeka touched his cheek gently. "One day we won't have to. I promise." One night, Chukwuemeka sneaked out as usual to meet Emeka. Unknown to her, her father Obinna woke up needing to use the bathroom. As he got up, he noticed Chukwuemeka's door was open. "Chukwuemeka?" he called out. No answer. "Chukwuemeka, are you there?" Worried, Obinna checked her room. It was empty. His worry turned to anger. "Where has that girl gone?" he muttered. Obinna was about to shout for her when a thought stopped him. "No, wait. I should see what she's up to first." He went outside and looked around. In the distance, he saw a faint light moving. Quickly, Obinna hid behind a bush to watch. As the light got closer, he saw it was Chukwuemeka. She was with someone, but Obinna couldn't make out who it was in the dark. "Is that? No, it can't be that Emeka boy," Obinna thought, squinting to see better. He watched as Chukwuemeka and the mystery person hugged goodbye. Then Chukwuemeka went into her hut. Obinna came out from his hiding place, fuming with anger and disappointment. "She disobeyed me," he said to himself, "but who was that with her? I need to know for sure." He paced back and forth, thinking. Finally, he made a decision. "Tomorrow night, I'll follow her. If it's that Emeka, I'll kill him myself." Obinna went back to bed, but he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what he'd seen and what he might do tomorrow. "I warned them both," he thought. "If it's Emeka, he's brought this on himself." As the sun rose, Obinna got up from his restless sleep. His face was set with determination. "Today, I'll find out the truth," he muttered to himself. Throughout the day, Obinna kept a close eye on Chukwuemeka. She seemed nervous, often glancing at him when she thought he wasn't looking. As evening approached, Obinna pretended to get ready for bed. "Good night, Chukwuemeka," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Good night, father," Chukwuemeka replied, not meeting his eyes. Obinna went to his room and closed the door, but he didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, waiting and listening. Hours passed. Just when Obinna thought he might have been mistaken, he heard a soft creak. It was the sound of Chukwuemeka's door opening. Obinna held his breath, straining to hear. There was the faint sound of footsteps, then the compound gate closing. Now, Obinna thought, his heart racing. He slipped out of his room and out of the compound with his sharpened knife. His intention was to kill both of them without anybody knowing. In the moonlight, he could see Chukwuemeka's figure moving down the path. Keeping to the shadows, Obinna followed her. Chukwuemeka walked quickly, looking around nervously every few steps. Obinna had to be careful not to be seen.
If you're eager to see how this story unfolds, please subscribe and let us know in the comments below. Type continue. If you want to see episode 2, your feedback will help shape future videos on this channel.